Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. I got it. Um, Most of what we're experiencing can be traced, everything for, in my opinion, about rural and small town churches has to do with farm size and has to do with number of farms. Um, 2017 to 2021, Wisconsin has lost 2,515 dairy farms. That's 628 farms per year. The other reality, this is not your grandparents' farm that you know now. The farms that people my age, 50 and older, know are what we experience as from our grandparents. Um, those farms are way different, way different than what farms are now. People 50 years and younger probably have no experience with the farm. They're very removed from it. So we have this nostalgic look at the farm because we were kids when we experienced it, which is no longer a reality. Farms are larger with fewer people living on the land. Because of this, there's fewer people in the schools and fewer people in the churches. So I'm out here north of Elkhorn. When I walk out my door, a mile to the south, I can smell cow manure. And I know if the wind's from the south, I know it's the Nelson farm. If it's from the west, I know it's the Sugar Creek Dairy Farm. Every other farm along Sugar Creek Road used to have cows and used to have people, families and kids working on those farms. Nobody has cows anymore except those two. So the farms are bigger. Now, I'm also talking only about Walworth County. If you start going west of here, even west of Madison and Janesville, I mean, it's even larger farms and fewer. When you get West River, I'm from South Central South Dakota, it's crazier and very few people because the farms are huge. Um, in general, so for me, it's all about rural flight because of size of farms. Uh, Walworth County, which is what I know, and the Synod, I've been here since 92, which I kind of understand. We are much more fortunate than many other rural places because we have many farms that are smaller than some other places. Walworth, and we're also close to Milwaukee, Madison, and Chicago. If you go out where I'm from in South Dakota, you have to go to Sioux Falls. That's a 3-hour drive. Okay. In general, rural and small town people are independent. They detest regulation of anything by the government. Here, Madison, who they see as out of touch. We're going to do it ourselves before we'd ever ask for help, or God forbid, we'd ever ask somebody to pay. We'd pay somebody to do it. We're independent. We do it ourselves, and we're never going to pay anybody to do it. And that's true about small town people and rural people, and I know that's true about rural churches. And now, when I say rural and small town, I don't mean small church. I just mean their location. Um, rural and small town people and churches are older, whiter, fewer, and more politically conservative. The majority of the non-white rural folks are farm workers, not landowners, and they're more transient or mobile. So I grew up in Worthington, Minnesota, and here in Walworth, those folks who are non-white work in Minnesota, especially Western Minnesota, work at the packing plants. Those folks here who are non-white are working in our dairy farms, but they're not owning the land. And so because of that, it's a more transient group of folks. So who is left sitting in our pews? So finally, the people who are left here in our rural areas are politically aligned with white evangelicals in their political ideology, which has replaced their theological beliefs. So political ideology has replaced theological beliefs. So when we use catchwords like inclusiveness, openness, racial equity, welcoming of the other, climate stewardship, all the white older folks that are left sitting in our pews, because that's the people left in our demographics, they think that we're liberal and it leaves them without what they would consider a theological home. So, for example, I have a friend named Paul Gamlin. He serves a church in far eastern Iowa. He was getting a text every week after his sermon saying where he was theologically wrong from this guy. And so finally, this guy says, I'm not going to send you a text anymore about where you're theologically wrong. I've been looking at the ELCA, and I learned that you're basically just somebody who's, you're just an ELCA pastor, and you're just preaching what they believe. And I discovered that I'm not ELCA anymore. That church is not my theological home anymore. His theology all had to do with racial equity, climate, all the catchwords. It wasn't his theology, it was his political ideology. And we know that political ideology and white evangelicals has replaced anything that resembles theology. So what this practically means, in my opinion, for small and rural town people, is that the traditional services and outreach that mainline churches used to provide to small town and rural people are gone. And I know that this has been predicted for a number of years in our rural states, and not just by Christians, but by sociological folks, sociology, the demographics. What they saw was that the mainline folks and churches were the ones who were serving people. And as all those churches were leaving and declining, all the services that were given to people were leaving and declining. I didn't invent the phrase, but I use the phrase a lot. We like to serve people, and the evangelicals like to save people. And so the issue then with what's left in those small and rural town folks is we have a political ideology that is about getting people to heaven, but it's not about serving people and their needs right now in those communities. And so there's this real gap in care for each other. There's this real gap in services provided for rural folks. Likewise, I think we rural and small town people look to the urban folks who have taken our youth and our young families, and we think, why are they not bursting at the seams? How come you guys aren't, why aren't you having multiple services and just bursting at the seams? Not realizing that the people we have in our community are not interested in our political ideology, theology, and the people that you have access are not interested in the organized church, whatever the form, theology, or ideology it takes. So you have a lot of, if you have in the urban setting, more young people, more young families, we all know that they're just not interested in church. And so that's my observation, is what we are left with is folks who are interested in church, but they've replaced their theological framework with a political ideology. And the folks that have left the rural areas and gone urban, and that's not a secret to anybody, we know how disinterested they are in church. Which leads me to my final comment. Now, we at Sugar Creek, we have 15 to 20, we've moved everything to Wednesday nights for youth. And I'm just letting you know that it's not that we don't have kids. We have 15 to 20 in Sunday school. The confirmation class that we're going to have on Reformation Sunday, there's 11 kids in that. So we have about 30 kids in confirmation. We consistently send 20 to 25 kids on a mission trip. We're going to have 20 to 25 go to the National Youth Gathering. So we do have, it's not that we don't have youth and doing a lot with them. But we also know that the people who are joining our church and the people who are sitting in our pews, the people who are doing the service ministry are all 50 and older. And so we have really turned our focus We're trying to hire, and we're trying to look at services and resources that all have to do with elder care, respite care for that. So we're really focusing highly and working with, and I'll get to that in a little bit. What we're doing together with other churches is really focusing on elder care, and that's because that's the rural demographic that remains, which is in my notes here, which is my transition to Ken Smith, who will share his observations about urban churches. And look at that, Ken, it's 2:29. Okay.
And I'm supposed to share some observations on the Lutheran or the urban context, and then some stuff on Eldra-Telescope, right?
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we able to screen share? Are we able to screen share, or should I just talk?
You should be able to screen share.
Okay, let me see what happens here.
See, the old guy is more technologically advanced than the younger guy. So that's
Also, you may just have to give him permission.
Okay. Screen share entire screen.
You should be able now, Ken.
Okay, let's see what I can do.
We've got it.
However, it looks like you muted yourself.
And you're muted. Ken, you're muted. We still couldn't hear you. Oh.
And I think I'm unmuted. Is that right?
Now you are.
Okay. Now let me find my notes. Hang on a second. Oh dear. I've totally lost my notes in this. Hang on a second. Oh, wow. Let's go to a new tab, get equipping Saints Webinar Live. Tab. Oh no. Well, since I'm not sure that I can do this. I'm completely out of this thing.
I bet
But I
every
am
teacher
here,
on this can empathize, right, in this panic moment. So you are in good
Yeah, I
company.
can't
We've
find
all
my
been
notes
here.
now anywhere at all. And I was all set up with that, but I don't see them anywhere.
Ken, did you want me to move on to the practical observations and then come back?
Okay, can you see me now?
See
Yes.
you.
He froze.
I know. Okay, I'm just going without my, I know am I still frozen?
No.
You're good.
I'm good now. All right. Well, I think the urban context is so complicated and so diverse that it's hard to generalize about it at all. I think that transition and change and transformation and diversity of situations and people is just part of what it means to be an urban congregation. And I think that all of those things happen at a fairly fast pace, and it's difficult to know for sure where you are in that whole matrix of needing to transform and needing to change and adjusting to the various things that are happening, sometimes often very quickly, and the diverse set of opinions that you'll have about just about any situation in which you encounter things. I think one of the things that is common in urban settings is that there is often a focus on on a mission or a purpose for that congregation, and that becomes sort of the reason for being. And the more successfully the congregation grounds itself in its particular mission and purpose, the more likely it is to generate a longer term future. So whatever that is, that's an important part of the urban setting. I think too that urban churches will have a tendency to not know for sure where they're going. There's a sense of uncertainty about ourselves. Not it's sort of a vague uneasiness about how everything is, and it's hard sometimes to generate just a sense of delight or goodwill or joy, because we're all just like not sure, and we're not sure of our situation or how things are to be interpreted or understood. And I also think that urban congregations have to face some, well, let's call it legacy. They'll have a legacy. It can be an ethnic heritage or a particular understanding of how to be church, or a certain set of financial restrictions or traditions with respect to partnerships. But every congregation has a set of legacies, and those legacies can be both a blessing and a curse. They can really provide institutional strength at times and generate enough of a common purpose to go ahead with something. But sometimes the legacy is that, well, we've always done it this way and we'll never get out of it. So I think that uncertainty at times, the sense of a legacy, the articulation of a mission, and a necessity for dealing with change and transformation at a fast pace are all parts of our urban church experience. And that's about all I could say about that in general. And I think that, can you still see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Dick and I thought I would talk a little bit about Eldra Fellowscap, and I have dropped my notes on that. I can't find them on my computer, so I think I may try to get to them on my laptop. Let's see what I can do here.
So while Ken is finding those, some of the practical observations that we made about how we, why we work together, actually, why Ken and I work together. And what we've discovered is it's all about relationships. Ken and I have had breakfast or lunch together once a month for 25 years. Started when we were both in Janesville, and as we've moved around, we've maintained that relationship. That's the only reason that Midvale and Sugar Creek are in relationship together. There's no other reason. We are in relationship with Faith Lutheran in Walworth. The only reason that Sugar Creek is in relationship with Faith Lutheran in Walworth is because when we went to the National Youth Gathering, our kids and adults rode with their kids and adults in a bus for 25 hours, front and back. And from that, we got to know each other. from that. When Vicar Lilly became, we supervised her with Walworth. We do joint confirmation retreats together. All these different kinds of things. It's all because of previous relationships. Our two congregations, Midvale and Sugar Creek, we go and visit them for an educational experience, relational experience. They come down and visit us for an educational, relational experience. And now, because of Ken and I's relationship, there's developing relationships between our people. So my first, I guess my only thing is, find the people that you're in the churches you're already in relationship. Don't try to find new ones and manufacture them. Find the folks that you're already in relationship and start working with them. Start having conversations with them. And then once that happens naturally, and as you listen to each other, then ministries come and stuff. But I have not discovered manufactured relationships leading to collaborative ministry. That is the basic thing that we have done. We'll expand a little bit more on that, but Ken, did you got your notes?
Yes, I do.
Right.
So when we did talk with each other because we were connected to each other relationally for so long, and our people in our congregation did, we discovered that we were older, and that elder care or older ministry or eldre fellesskap, Norwegian for elder fellowship, was something that we both considered and benefited from a mutual conversation. So I just want to go through a little bit of elder fellowship with you. It's elder fellowship. Elder fellowship is not well, it's rethinking being older in congregations. It's looking at aging as an evangelical opportunity rather than the cause of our death and decline as a church. And it's an evangelical opportunity because the largest and growing demographic in the United States is people who are 60 and older. In fact, in the last census, it appears that the most recent one, that the only age demographic that's growing in the United States is 60 and older. And that's true in Wisconsin, it's true in Dane County, it's true in Madison, it's true in the United States, and it's true globally. So part of this is rethinking things so that growing older is not seen as a problem that's going to result in the demise of the church, but as an evangelical opportunity presented to us precisely because we are older people. Older people are diverse culturally, politically, ethnically, educationally, and economically. So sometimes we think of old people as being one particular thing or another, but just about every element of life with respect to diversity is experiencing aging at roughly the same rate. And it doesn't really make much difference which group you're in. And in the aging populations, there is a great deal of transition. The only demographic that faces any more transition than aged ones are adolescents. But there's transition in housing and relocation in different parts of the country, and ex-urban situations, in people moving into all kinds of care facilities or senior housing complexes. And there's retirement, there's the death of one's spouse, but there's a tremendous amount of transition in the elderly years. And transition is always a time for congregational membership change. It's when we have a change in our life that we are considering joining a congregation for the first time. So actually, many of the new members that we have at Midvale, most of our new members at Midvale, which is a young congregation, are those who are 60 and older and are moving for one reason or another because they've experienced a change in their life and they suddenly have to find a new church home. And as we grow older, we grow more religious rather than less. So now we don't have any research on that because we've been so busy researching the millennial disinterest in religion. We don't really know that much for sure cognitively about this, but almost everything that we've seen so far indicates that as you grow older, you grow more religious. And so these things come together to cause us to sense that maybe growing older is an evangelical possibility rather than a problem. If there are characteristics of an elder fellowship, they would be something like this. It's an older fellowship that's open to others, an openness to others, rather than a closed group. Elder fellowship has a delight in youth ministry and young adults and midlife people. It's important to have all of those folk around as much as possible. Elder fellowship involves opportunity for friendship and reflection and growth and service. And it is an opportunity to worship regularly, and it's an opportunity to sustain congregational activity with time and talent and resources. And it's an opportunity for older adults to mutually support and care for one another in times of difficulty and change. Elder fellowship is a group of older people helping each other negotiating life in a changing world. Change is something that is really difficult as we grow older, and change is not bad. It's not good. You just have to sort out what is useful to you and what isn't, and build a life that negotiates the changes that you experience. Elder fellowship involves reflection on human limitations. We have a great deal of limitations to deal with, but also death. Death is a hot topic again because people are actually asking the religious questions of what does it mean to die? What does it mean that I have lived? What happens when I die? And frankly, most adults that I know of really don't believe in the heaven, hell, three-story universe anymore, but they also wonder what's going to happen and what's involved. So it's a newly hot topic, and there is a delight in growing wisdom and gratitude and self-acceptance. And if I were to characterize elder fellowship at this particular stage in life, I would say that it would have those characteristics. Elder fellowship may call for some reframing then of our perspective on aging in our congregations in a variety of settings, rural and urban. Some of that reframing involves the mindset of some of our older members. It's very easy as an older member in a congregation to say, well, the young people aren't interested in the church anymore, and that's why the church is dying, rather than realize that the church is dying because we as old people aren't talking to our friends and neighbors about the faith, and that when our friends and neighbors do come, they see a closed group that it's very hard to break into. And so we need to really work on that openness and accept responsibility as older members for the demise of the church, rather than blame another generation and say, well, they're the ones who aren't joining the church, and so that's why we're going downhill. the numbers really are that the people that are out there to get are our age. So we're the ones who have to do the work. We're the ones sitting right in the middle of the fastest growing market in the United States. So this is our problem, not the millennials or whatever. And that mindset has to change for some of our members. Another reframing is that we just have to get rid of this idea that because we're growing older, that's the reason our church is dying. Rural sociology and small town sociology have a much bigger impact on this than that, than aging. We are growing older, but there's so many of us who are growing older that isn't the reason the church in itself is growing old. It is or dying. It's because of other factors that play out in contemporary American life. And we can, in certain circumstances, really shift things around by becoming more focused on being graying centers of Christianity. I think another reframing for Eldra Fellowscop is moving beyond the providing of services for the older people. So many times, Elder Fellowscop gets framed as services that we provide for the aging, and that's fine and good, but I really think it's more important to get into thematic reflections on what life is about, what matters at this stage in life, how am I relating to the people around me, what are the things that are important as I leave this world, and how do I make sure that I leave it in the best possible shape possible, and how do I care and mutual consolation and support for the people who are around me. And it's that kind of conversational milieu that's more important than what services we provide. And some of that reframing is, I think, called for when we get into the area of religious research. I know we're in congregations, but sometimes I get a little concerned because all of our research is about how people aren't interested in the church at various ages, and what their view of the faith is, and all that sort of thing. But if you really Google and research and look a lot, you're not going to find anything about the religious inclinations of older people. It just doesn't exist. We're preoccupied with other generations in this regard. So we really don't know. We don't have any data about what's the best way to set ourselves up so that people hear what they need to hear in order to be the best possible people in their older years. And so I think I really would like to see much more research in this particular area, and that calls for a bit of reframing. So Elder Fellowscop is an evangelical opportunity. It has a certain set of characteristics in a congregation's life, and it may call for some reframing of our perspectives on what it means to reach out to the community.
Thank you very much, Ken. That's when we started our relationship. We had no idea when our two churches started that we would come down to this. We all know how to do youth ministry, and the church has been built for that. We were very surprised, but both of our congregations have ended up focusing on how we engage our 50 and older folks. One thing that just as you're building these relationships, one thing that we discovered, it always has to be one of mutuality. The power dynamics have to be equal. between rural churches and urban churches, between any churches. I don't care what size they are. The power dynamics have to be very, very equal. It has to be one of mutual ministry, not a helping hand up. The big church is going to help the little church, or the rural church is going to help the urban, or whatever. However that is, we've worked very, very hard to keep everything mutual, out of respect, and that's really been helpful. Rural people are too proud, independent, and untrusting of urban folks to engage in anything that smells of this, though, too. I mean, if we smell that, besides the dairy farm down the road, if we smell that there's some kind of helping hand up, like we need to help you poor cousins, they won't deal with that at all. But they're really excited about the mutuality, and they're really excited about getting to know each other and build relationships. And I would say that's true for us with Faith Lutheran and Walworth. We're a larger congregation, they're a smaller congregation. But everything that we do with Faith Lutheran and Walworth is all mutual. And that's really positive they have taught us by what they do on Wednesday nights. We've been copying it here at Sugar Creek. And so that's a very positive relationship that we've developed, and the other thing, Ken discovered it. If you want to talk quickly about hospitality, Ken. And
Oh yeah, one of the things that surprised me was how much everybody liked being hospitable and receiving hospitality. In a dialogue, if you visit one place or the other, then you're hosting sometimes and you're guesting other times, and people really like that, both sides of it. And this sense of hospitality within the dialogue ended up being an important thing. Although at Midvale, we realized that we weren't nearly as capable of producing interesting church food as they were in Sugar Creek. We just didn't quite have your skill set there. So there's just something about that, what Sugar Creek was able to do with that. Well, you know what I mean about funeral luncheons and all that stuff. It just is there, and it was very good. And at Midvale, we went out to a restaurant, I think, after.
Oh, you catered.
Yeah, we catered something in. It
was so urban and rural. We had a potluck and they catered, which was kind of which was authentic to who we are. So
it was authentic, and I know that some of your people really liked the meal. I mean, they really liked they thought, wow, that was really cool. But our people were deeply impressed with that. And I think that there's an appreciation of difference that comes with this too. I mean, we aren't alike, and that's okay. And we just sit down and talk, and there's that kind of an attitude. And then there's some sense of looking for common ground, like where we are. We talked about elder ministry, but there was a lot of conversation about youth ministry and the challenges that we all face with that, and how youth ministry cycles out. And so, some years you really have lots of kids, and then other years you don't, and why that is. And so there's this search and seeking of common ground and appreciation of differences and hospitality. Yeah.
So we've ran you up to 2:57. Quick question, or questions that you all have, or response or side remarks that you would like to make. We didn't have anybody in the chat. We've been monitoring that. So. All right. Well, Ken, the reason there's no questions is everything that we said was very, very intelligent and well received. So that's how I'm taking that. Okay, Ken?
Okay. That's a good way to take it. Right. I apologize to the group for my crash here, but I was able to recover a little bit there. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that you folks would. Number one, Walter, for asking us, and number two, that you folks would take time out of this beautiful day. Because I can tell you, when I leave this, I'm going to my car and then going home and changing my clothes, and I'm going fishing in my kayak. So you guys,
Right. That is excellent self-care. Thank you both, Dick and Ken, for your presentation today. Thank you all for joining Equipping the Saints. In 2 weeks, we're going to have Reverend Erica Becker with us. Erica is newly called to a synod call, doing a grief ministry call, which is as I said, a call to, it's a non-stipendiary call. Available to the whole synod, to all the congregations of our synod, equipping and resourcing all the congregations of the South Central Synod in helping with grief ministry. So please make time to attend. That'll be November 2nd, I think is the day, the first Tuesday of November. And you will see publicity in What Matters about that. But that's a heads up about what's coming next. So thank you for this afternoon. I think all of you should go kayak fishing and get out and enjoy the day. So thank you again, and peace until we meet again.